Life had a way of testing me, pushing me to my limits and challenging my resilience. 7 years ago, tragedy struck when my husband fell ill to an incurable illness. It was a devastating blow, and the grief threatened to consume me. But I couldn't afford to let it. I was pregnant with our child, and I knew I had to summon all the strength within me to protect the life growing inside me. As the days turned into months, I faced the heart-wrenching reality of losing my husband while carrying our unborn son. Every moment was a battle between grief and hope. I would talk to my belly, telling my baby stories about his father, desperately wanting him to know the love that existed between us. When the day finally arrived, and I held my son in my arms for the first time, I knew I had to be the best mother I could be. I made a promise to myself that I would be both mother and father to him, filling his life with love and guiding him through the challenges that lay ahead. As my son grew older, he became my beacon of light, his laughter and innocence bringing joy into my world. We created our own little universe, where it was just the two of us against the world. Together, we forged ahead, embracing each new day with hope and determination. One evening, as the sun began its descent, I sat with my son at the kitchen table, helping him with his homework. Pencil in hand, he furrowed his brow, struggling with a math problem. I leaned over, pointing to the equation, and said, "Okay, let's try this again. Remember, if you divide the larger number by the smaller one, you'll get the answer." He nodded, trying once more, his determination mirrored in his bright eyes. As we worked together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his resilience and eagerness to learn. It reminded me of the strength that had carried us through the darkest days. Once he completed his assignment, my son closed his notebook and looked up at me. "Mom, can we play catch in the backyard?" he asked, a hint of excitement in his voice. A smile spread across my face as I replied, "Of course, my little champion. Let's head outside and show off those skills you've been practicing." We stepped out into the cool evening air, the scent of freshly cut grass filling our nostrils. The sound of children playing echoed through the neighborhood, reminding me of the joys of childhood. I grabbed a baseball glove from the porch and tossed it to my son. He caught it with a grin and eagerly positioned himself a few feet away. With each throw and catch, his confidence grew. The ball sailed through the air, the sound of the impact against the glove filling me with a sense of accomplishment. I marveled at the resilience and determination of this young boy, my son, who had faced adversity from the very beginning of his life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over our backyard, my son turned to me with sparkling eyes. "Mom, I'm going to be the best baseball player in the world one day. Just you wait and see," I chuckled, ruffling his hair affectionately. "I believe in you, my little superstar." With your determination and strength, there's nothing you can't achieve. In that moment, I knew that despite the challenges we had faced and would continue to face, the bond between a mother and her child was unbreakable. It was a bond forged in the fires of adversity, fueled by love, and strengthened by the unwavering resilience of a mother's heart. Together, we would navigate life's hurdles, always leaning on each other for support and emerging stronger on the other side. As the years passed, my son grew from a curious toddler into a bright and eager child. The time had come for him to embark on his educational journey, stepping into the world of formal schooling. It was both an exciting and nerve-wracking time for both of us. On the first day of school, I woke up early to prepare a hearty breakfast for my son. I wanted to ensure he started his day with a full belly and a heart filled with encouragement. Sitting at the kitchen table, he looked at me with wide eyes, his school bag slung over his shoulder. "Mom, I'm a little scared. What if I don't make any friends?" He voiced his worries, his voice tinged with apprehension. I leaned across the table and took his small hands in mine, reassuring him, "Sweetheart, making friends takes time, but you have such a kind heart and a wonderful personality. I'm sure you'll find friends who will cherish you just as much as I do." He nodded, a glimmer of hope returning to his eyes. With a deep breath, He finished his breakfast and stood up, ready to face the day ahead. I packed his favorite snacks in his bag and watched him walk out the door, his small frame filled with determination. The first few days passed by in a blur of new faces, unfamiliar classrooms, and the excitement of discovering new things. Every evening, my son would return home with tales of his adventures, animatedly recounting his encounters with classmates and the things he had learned. But one day, as he entered our home, I noticed a change in his demeanor. His usually bright eyes were now filled with sadness, his shoulders slumped, and his smile replaced with a frown. Sitting him down at the kitchen table, I asked gently, "What happened, my love? Why do you look so upset?" He let out a heavy sigh, his voice tinged with hurt. "Mom, today, my teacher locked me in my locker while he packed his things. He said mean things to me and made fun of me in front of the other kids." My heart sank, anger bubbling within me at the injustice my son had endured. I held back my emotions and took a deep breath, trying to comfort him. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that, sweetheart. No one should ever treat you that way. You are strong, smart, and worthy of respect." He looked up at me, tears welling in his eyes. "But what can we do, Mom? I don't want to go back to that teacher." A fire ignited within me, fueled by my love for my son and my unwavering determination to protect him. I wiped away his tears and looked into his eyes, my voice filled with resolve. "We will not let this go, my brave boy. I will make sure that teacher understands the consequences of their actions." In that moment, I made a silent promise to myself. No matter what it took, I would fight for justice, and my son would never have to endure such cruelty again. Together, we would confront the teacher and ensure that his voice was heard loud and clear. The incident with my son's teacher weighed heavily on my mind. I couldn't shake off the feeling of anger and disappointment that someone entrusted with the education and well-being of children would resort to such bullying behavior. Determined to address the issue, I decided to gather more information before taking any action. That evening, as my son and I sat at the dinner table, I broached the subject gently, careful not to overwhelm him. "Sweetheart, can you tell me more about what happened with your teacher? Did anyone else witness it?" He fidgeted with his fork, his gaze fixed on the plate before him. "Well, Mom, some of the other kids saw it too. They laughed, but I think they were scared too. I didn't know what to do, so I just stayed quiet." I reached across the table and placed my hand on his, offering comfort. "You did nothing wrong, my love. It's not your responsibility to confront the teacher. That's something I will take care of. But I need to know as much as possible so we can build a strong case." He nodded, relief washing over his face as he realized he wouldn't have to face this alone. Taking a deep breath, he recounted the incident in detail, describing how the teacher had locked him in the locker, taunted him, and made hurtful remarks about his abilities. The more I listened, the angrier I became. My son deserved better, and it was my duty as his mother to ensure that justice was served. After dinner, I sat down with a pen and paper, documenting every detail of what my son had experienced. I wanted to have a clear record of the events to present when the time came. The following day, I made an appointment to meet with the school principal. As I sat across from him, I could sense his initial reluctance to acknowledge the severity of the situation. But I was determined to make him understand the impact this had on my son. "Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your time today. I need to discuss a serious matter concerning my son's treatment by his teacher," I stated firmly, my voice carrying the weight of my concern. The principal shifted uncomfortably in his seat, attempting to downplay the incident. "Mrs. Anderson, we take all reports of misconduct seriously, but sometimes children exaggerate or misinterpret situations. I assure you, we will address this matter internally." I leaned forward, my voice laced with determination. "This is not an exaggeration, Mr. Johnson. My son has been traumatized by his teacher's actions, and it is your responsibility to ensure a safe and nurturing environment for all students. I will not rest until this matter is properly investigated and appropriate actions are taken." The principal's expression changed, understanding the gravity of the situation. I apologize if I underestimated the seriousness of this matter, Mrs. Anderson. I assure you, we will conduct a thorough investigation, and if the allegations are proven true, appropriate disciplinary action will be taken. Though skeptical, I appreciated his change in tone. It was a small victory, but there was still a long way to go in seeking justice for my son. I left the meeting with a renewed determination, knowing that I had taken the first step towards ensuring the responsible party would be held accountable. As I drove home, thoughts of my son's pain and the injustice he had endured consumed my mind. I clung to the hope that, in the end, his courage and my unwavering support would pave the way for a brighter and safer future, not just for him, but for all the children who may have suffered in silence. The incident with my son's teacher had ignited a fire within me, a burning fury that refused to be extinguished. No longer content with sitting on the sidelines, I was determined to confront the teacher and demand answers for his despicable behavior. The following morning, I marched into the school, my steps purposeful and my heart pounding with righteous anger. I sought out the teacher's classroom, my grip tightening around the strap of my bag as if it were a lifeline to my resolve. As I entered the classroom, the teacher glanced up, a sneer on his face. "Ah, Mrs. Anderson. What, Mrs. Anderson? What brings you here? Has little Timmy been causing trouble again?" My voice laced with controlled fury, I retorted, "No, Mr. Stevens. It is you who has caused trouble for my son. Locking him in a locker, taunting him in a locker, taunting him and belittling him in front of his peers. I will not tolerate such behavior from an educator." He laughed mockingly, his condescending tone cutting through the air. "Oh, look, it's the poor and helpless single mother trying to protect her precious little boy. What a joke." I could feel my blood boiling, but I refused to let his words weaken my resolve. Taking a deep breath, I locked eyes with him, my voice dripping with determination. "You underestimate me, Mr. Stevens. I may be a single mother, but I am far from helpless. I will fight tooth and nail to ensure that you face the consequences of your actions." His smirk faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "You think you can do anything. You're just one person against the system." In that moment, I realized that I couldn't face this battle alone. I needed someone in a position of power, someone who could make a difference. My mind raced, and I thought of my brother, the mayor of our city. With a glimmer of hope, I made up my mind to seek his help. Leaving the classroom, I headed straight to City Hall, my heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and determination. When I arrived at my brother's office, I found him poring over documents, the weight of his responsibilities evident on his face. Taking a deep breath, I spoke, my voice filled with urgency. "Brother, I need your help. Something terrible has happened to Timmy at school, and I cannot let it go unpunished." He looked up, concern etched across his features. "Margaret, what's happened?" I recounted the incident, the pain in my voice evident as I shared the details of my son's ordeal. My brother listened attentively, his expression growing increasingly furious with every word. "This is unacceptable," he declared, his voice filled with righteous anger. "No child should ever have to endure such mistreatment. I will not stand idly by while this teacher mocks our family and undermines the well-being of our community." With renewed determination, my brother and I devised a plan. We would approach the school administrators together, demanding justice for my son and accountability from the teacher. My brother's position as the mayor would lend weight to our cause, making it clear that this incident would not be swept under the rug. As we walked back to the school, side by side, I felt a sense of empowerment. No longer was I just a single mother fighting for her son. I now had the support of someone with influence and authority, a force to be reckoned with. In that moment, I vowed to myself that I would not let anyone demean or dismiss me. I would show them the power of a mother's love and the strength that can emerge from even the darkest of circumstances. Together, my brother and I would fight for justice and ensure that my son's voice was not only heard, but acted upon. With my brother, the mayor, by my side, we approached the school administrators, ready to demand justice for my son. The weight of his position lent us a sense of authority and determination. We would not be ignored or dismissed. As we sat in the office of the school principal, my brother's presence commanded attention. The principal shifted uncomfortably in his seat, aware of the gravity of the situation. I watched as my brother's gaze pierced through the administrator, demanding answers. "Mr. Johnson, my sister has informed me of a deeply troubling incident involving her son and one of your teachers," my brother began, his voice firm and commanding. "Bullying and mistreatment of students will not be tolerated in this city, especially not within our educational institutions." The principal stuttered, taken aback by my brother's assertiveness. "We are conducting an investigation, Mayor Anderson. We take these matters seriously." My brother leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with determination. "That is not enough, Mr. Johnson. We demand transparency and immediate action. This teacher's conduct is reprehensible, and the safety and well-being of our students must be prioritized." I felt a surge of gratitude for my brother's unwavering support. Together, we presented the evidence we had gathered, witness testimonies, my son's detailed account, and the emotional toll it had taken on him. It was a powerful case we had built, leaving no room for doubt or dismissal. The principal, now realizing the seriousness of the situation, nodded solemnly. "I understand the gravity of this situation. Mayor Anderson, Mrs. Anderson. Mrs. Anderson, rest assured we will expedite the investigation, and if the allegations are proven true, appropriate action will be taken." My brother leaned back in his chair, his expression resolute. "I expect nothing less, Mr. Johnson. Our community's trust and the welfare of our children depend on it." With that, we left the office, our mission far from over. The news of our visit to the school spread, and whispers of the mayor's involvement in the matter began to circulate. It was a signal to the community that this issue would not be brushed aside or ignored. In the coming days, my brother and I worked tirelessly, gathering support from concerned parents, community leaders, and even local media. We brought attention to the case, shining a light on the importance of addressing bullying in schools and holding educators accountable for their actions. Soon, the school found itself under intense scrutiny, the weight of public opinion pressing down on them. The incident became a rallying point, a symbol of the need for change and a safe environment for all children. Through it all, my brother remained steadfast, a pillar of support. He attended community meetings, spoke out against bullying, and reassured me that we were on the right path. His presence and guidance gave me strength, bolstering my resolve even further. Together, we had ignited a movement, one that demanded justice and the eradication of bullying within our educational system. The school could no longer hide behind bureaucratic red tape or empty promises. As we continued to push for change, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in my brother and the impact we were making. We were fighting not just for my son, but for every child who had suffered at the hands of a bully, for every parent who had felt helpless in their child's pain. With my brother's support, I had become more than just a single mother fighting for her son's rights. I had become a voice, a force to be reckoned with, and together, we would not rest until justice was served. Armed with the support of my brother, the mayor, and the growing community rallying behind us, the time had come to confront the teacher responsible for my son's anguish. We walked through the school's corridors with purpose, determined to ensure that the truth would be heard and justice served. As we entered the teacher's classroom, a hush fell over the students. The teacher looked up, his expression a mix of surprise and unease. I could see a flicker of realization in his eyes. A realization that his actions were about to have serious consequences. "Mr. Stevens," my brother's voice resonated with authority, "we are here to discuss the disturbing incidents involving my nephew and your reprehensible behavior towards him." The teacher tried to maintain a facade of nonchalance, but his trembling hands and forced smile betrayed his anxiety. "I assure you, Mayor Anderson, it was just a misunderstanding. I would never intentionally harm a student." I stepped forward, my voice filled with controlled anger. "This was no misunderstanding, Mr. Stevens. My son has suffered emotional trauma because of your actions. We demand accountability and justice." The students watched in silence, their eyes wide with curiosity and perhaps even fear. They had witnessed the teacher's mistreatment of my son, and now they would witness the consequences of his actions. My brother, the embodiment of strength and justice, addressed the class with a stern gaze. "Children, what you have witnessed is not acceptable behavior from an educator. Bullying and mistreatment will not be tolerated in our schools. We must always strive to uplift and support one another." He turned his attention back to the teacher, his voice laced with determination. "Mr. Stevens, we demand your immediate resignation and cooperation in this matter. The welfare of our students is our utmost priority, and you have proven yourself unfit for this profession." The teacher's face paled, his defiance melting away. "You can't do this! I have rights! My brother stood tall, unwavering. We will ensure that your rights are respected, but we will also ensure that the rights of our children are protected. This is your chance to make amends and show remorse for your actions." The classroom seemed to hold its breath, anticipation hanging heavy in the air. The teacher looked defeated, his shoulders slumped, and his voice trembled as he finally spoke. I apologize for my behavior. I understand the consequences of my actions and the pain I have caused. I will resign immediately." Though victory had been achieved, it was a bittersweet moment. The damage had been done, and my son would bear the scars of this experience. But I was determined to help him heal, to show him that justice could be served and that his voice mattered. As we walked out of the classroom, my son joined us, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and sadness. I enveloped him in a tight embrace, whispering words of comfort and reassurance. Together, we would embark on the journey of healing, knowing that the teacher would no longer have the power to harm him or any other child. The school atmosphere began to change in the following weeks. Anti-bullying campaigns were implemented, ensuring that students were educated about the importance of kindness, empathy, and standing up against mistreatment. The incident had served as a wake-up call for the entire school community, fostering an environment that was more nurturing and supportive. As for the former teacher, the legal consequences were far from over. My brother, with his influence and determination, ensured that the teacher faced legal charges for his actions. The trial would serve as a testament to the severity of the situation and the need for justice. The trial against the former teacher, Mr. Stevens, was a pivotal moment, a moment that would determine whether justice would be served and my son's pain would be acknowledged. We gathered in the courtroom, our hearts heavy with anticipation, ready to face the legal battle ahead. As the proceedings began, the courtroom buzzed with an air of tension. Witnesses took the stand, recounting the incident and the impact it had on my son. Their words painted a vivid picture of the cruelty and humiliation he had endured at the hands of his teacher. The defense attempted to downplay the severity of the incident, suggesting that it was a mere misunderstanding or a result of disciplinary measures gone wrong. But the prosecution, led by a determined lawyer who believed in our cause, presented a compelling case, highlighting the emotional trauma my son had suffered. As the trial reached its climax, it was time for the verdict. The judge's voice rang out in the hushed courtroom, each word carrying weight and consequence. Based on the evidence presented and the testimony of witnesses, the court finds Mr. Stevens guilty of bullying and emotional abuse of a minor. A sense of relief washed over me, tears welling up in my eyes. Justice was finally being served, and my son would see that his pain had not gone unnoticed or disregarded. But the battle was not yet over. The judge continued addressing the punishment. "Mr. Stevens, you will be relieved of your teaching duties, effective immediately. Additionally, you are ordered to pay $50,000 in compensation for the emotional distress caused to the victim and his family." My son squeezed my hand tightly, his face etched with a mix of emotions, vindication, relief, and a glimmer of healing. It was a small victory, but an important one. The judge's ruling sent a powerful message not just to Mr. Stevens, but to others who may have harbored similar intentions. As we stepped out of the courtroom, my brother, who had been a constant source of support throughout this journey, wrapped me in a comforting embrace. Margaret, we did it. We fought for justice, and justice was served. I smiled, grateful for his unwavering presence. Yes, we did. And it's not just about us, but for every child who has suffered in silence. We've shown them that their voices matter, and that they don't have to endure mistreatment. The news of the verdict spread throughout the community, bringing a renewed sense of hope and faith in the justice system. Parents and educators came together, vowing to create safer environments for children where bullying and mistreatment would not be tolerated. In the weeks that followed, my son began to heal, slowly but surely. With therapy and the unwavering support of our loved ones, he found solace and strength. The scars remained, but they served as a reminder of his resilience and the triumph over adversity. The compensation awarded to my son helped us in providing him with the support he needed: therapy, educational resources, and experiences to rebuild his confidence. It was a small silver lining in the face of the pain he had endured, but perhaps the greatest reward was the knowledge that we had made a difference. By speaking up, fighting for justice, and refusing to let the incident be swept under the rug, we had sparked change. The community rallied together, implementing stronger anti-bullying policies and ensuring that every child felt safe and supported in their educational journey. As I looked at my son, his eyes shining with newfound resilience, I knew that we had come out of this chapter stronger than ever. We had fought against the shadows of bullying, and in the process, we had discovered the power of our voices, the strength of a united community, and the importance of standing up for what is right. Together, we would continue to champion the cause of creating a world where every child could thrive, free from the fear of bullying and mistreatment. Justice had been served, but our journey towards a brighter future had only just begun.